Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the OG's Power Hour. We started a half a minute early just so that we can catch John's push-ups. Myself, I'm going to do some squats. Morning, Hetty. Good morning, Muji Fuji.
And I'm going to smoke the weed.
Okay, you smoke.
That's a great pattern to interrupt, because if you can interrupt the pattern, you should do it, smoking weed. It should go on. I have to wait for my alarm to go off too. It's like I don't do it early.
Oh, well, hey,
There it is.
Start early.
It's time to interrupt your pattern. Smoke a joint, do a dance, say yes. Yes. It's pattern interrupt time. Mr. Toad smoking a joint, I'm doing squats. I'm screaming yes. Morpheus. We don't know where Morpheus is. Stepping up.
Joint.
Are you pushing up? I hear Mr. Toad's cushion. He's cushioning up. I know Ken's squatting. I'm pushing. Morpheus, well, he's sleeping. What are you doing on this Mission Monday? Mission to push forward? Look forward to 2024? Oh, yeah, man. Woo! Yes. Yeah, I'm all dressed up. I get to go and see my doctor, so I get to do a half show today. Come join us on the OG Power Hour. We're on the biology, and it's all about you growing with us.
Whoa.
Is that how it works?
I think so. It's supposed to work that way.
Well, we're having a chat DTT problem this morning. It's not giving me the floor plan I want for my little event that I'm hosting.
You gotta love it when it's the programmer that's the problem.
Well, it's not. I mean, I put down here, I got a 116 foot by 67 square feet, which is 7,742 square feet in total. I need a main booth at 24 by 24, two 12 by 12s, 20 by 10s, 12 by 6s, and 12 round tables. It covers roughly around 4,000 square feet. I got 7,772 square feet, so 3,300 square feet for floor space for walking. Give me a layout.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no. It's definitely hard.
I don't know about this intelligent learning by the computer. It seems to be getting worse than better in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it was doing so well, and then it did something happen.
Yeah, programmer somewhere, or it decided it doesn't want us to be as smart as it is. I don't know.
And I'm only seeing myself. I don't even see you guys. Oh, it's because I'm looking on Zoom and I'm watching over here, and more behind me wanting in.
Of course, and you better let Morpheus in and post your push-ups, John.
I'm showing it.
So we're supposed to be talking about a positive attitude in the grow, and it's one of the main reasons that we want to maintain that positive attitude is it affects not just us, but it affects our plants. And I'm sure both Tony and John have seen this on numerous occasions in their grow and in commercial grows where somebody that's negative is there and the plants react to them. Now, have you seen that, Tony?
Yeah, for sure, man. Energy. It's all energy. So the plants can pick up on anything. But plants can hear each other, tell each other that something's happening. So damn straight they're going to hear and feel any negative energy that comes in the space. So if someone comes in there aggro and shit, those plants know what's up. Mm-hmm. Nature is a fickle beast. And when you come in there trying to act like you're the king of the jungle, they'll let you know pretty quickly. So usually those plants are going to end up having some kind of issues. If that person stays in the garden, you're going to be fighting shit the whole time, right? That person just doesn't give a fuck about being in there with the plants, and the plants understand it, and everybody around them starts to pick up on it. It just becomes a bad vibe for everything. And when you're growing plants for positive energy, that just breaks right through the defense and shows up pretty hard.
So what do you think are some of the main results of a bad attitude in the grow, other than, maybe stunted plants and plants not being healthy? Do you see anything else that a negative attitude brings into a commercial grow?
Well, in my experience, nobody ever plans to bring negativity to there. It's not part of the SOPs. So as soon as that shit shows up, everything else starts to steamroll downward. So like you got to take twice as many clones because the guy's fucking up your mother room, or he's not paying attention to the humidity levels in the flower room or something. And so now all our flowers are starting to look all crispy and shit. Like it all shows up at the bottom line. You're going to end up with an inferior product bringing negativity into your garden. You should be going in there and trying to utilize that space as a way to remove the negativity from yourself. Come there and shut down that negative energy and try to let the plants build you back up, and the whole energy from everyone else around that garden. Most people messing with cannabis, if they're at least in their 30s, understand what illegal cannabis was. It's a joy to be able to grow cannabis legally. If you don't automatically feel that coming in there, you're in the wrong industry, man. You need to go flip some burgers.
Yeah, and don't take your negative energy there either, because nobody wants it in there either.
Yeah, but nobody gives a fuck. The whole system's negative when you don't have humans making food for humans. It's just bullshit. That's why we're all dying inside. We got nothing but crap going in, crap coming out, and returning crap back to the system. If we went back to a holistic style of everything, from the way we eat to the way we entertain ourselves, we'd be in a far better fucking place. Like, try to go into the Amazon and find a fucking tribe of people there and ask them if they know what depression is. It's a word they don't use. They don't understand it. They don't have time for that stupid bullshit. They're working, they're living, and they're playing. And you're not depressed. You don't think that there's another tribe out there that has more fucking meat than you do. You just understand you're hungry. So you get your ass up and go do some shit. And that's where it comes down to. Leave that negativity out of there. It's a feeling that you can let go by the wayside. Like me being in my position, as sick as I was and as much as I was told I was going to die, I could have listened to that shit, right? And I would have died. I would have withered and I would not be here. But because I gave it a chance and didn't believe the bullshit, I'm here today. And that's what I'm proof of how getting rid of a negative attitude will help you strive. And it works for everything. Man, beast, and flower. Just period. 100%. The more healthy that you can get yourself mentally or on a energy level, if you don't have a mind like a plant, you're better off, period.
Well, and like Corey says here, is nobody is going to make sure you're healthy but you. And Lily said life is too short for negative vibes in life. And I have to agree, 100%. If you can stay positive, your life is going to have a much better outlook than being negative, because, that just drives you down into depression, makes your life worse.
And negative situations are real. Like, not everything's 100% positive, but dwelling on the part that didn't go completely correct is where we fail. We can literally look at that and go, okay, I did something wrong, or there was something in the situation that made it go this way. It should not have been. We need to retry it and fix it and make it work. That's how we've gotten through being humans. Like, humanity wouldn't be here if someone didn't learn how to pick up a piece of mushroom and set a fucking coal to it so that it could fucking smolder and they could travel and become from stuck in one place to go to another place. Like, so we don't die from our environment. It took the fact that you were open to different perspectives that made sure that the one you had didn't swallow you whole.
And what Victor says is very prevalent, is you attract what you're feeling. So if you're feeling negative energy, it's like Topicus was talking about. He was staring at his plants for an hour. What were you projecting? Were you projecting positive energy, positive thoughts? Were you allowing that energy from your plants, which is a positive energy, to influence you and your mental outlook? Toad, you go into your grow every day and spend time with your plants, not just to take care of them, but to take care of yourself.
Exactly. It's an energy. Like the plants,
yeah.
I used to go in there to slow down and relax. So I would actually go in my room and go to sleep. Literally, I'd go in there and sit amongst all the moms. There was 176 moms in there. I'd go clear a spot out, lean against the wall, and fall asleep. And when I woke up, I didn't remember none of the bullshit that I was thinking about. The only thing that I could feel was good. Like, I had clean air going in my system because I'm amongst plants that produce oxygen. right? So I had the cleanest space. I could go take deep breaths in and meditate. And that's what I think people should do more often in their garden. Instead of taking fancy pictures or post on Instagram, go in there and turn the lights off on yourself and relax. And just bring yourself back to a base level and understand that where you were at prior to coming in that room wasn't your natural form. That was the fucking phenotype of yourself being aggro because you don't want to go to work and the kids pissed you off and the dog ran away and fucking you don't have money for the fucking electricity and the food this week. Like, those are all things that we've put on ourselves that aren't reality. Those are just extras. Like, reality is what you have without those things. And if you can get yourself to remember that, those things become trivial. They become things that don't piss you off. You're not mad because you dropped the egg no more. You're not angry because the dog spilled water on the floor, right? You just wipe it up. It's not going to fucking hurt nothing. Life goes on. And the more you do that, the less likely you fall into the depression that so many people do. The depression is a state of mind. It's a chemical makeup that happens from you forcing your own system to drown out the correct hormones that your body should be making for you to feel well.
Yeah. Well, I know John and I talk about with the group every morning about a positive mental attitude. And that's really what it boils down to in everything that we do, whether it's growing plants ourselves, or anything else that we want to focus on, is that positive mental attitude carries us through any of those low spots. Would you agree with that, John?
100%. It's the PMA that gets us through, and it's not the private members club.
I still like private members club, but yeah, it's that positive mental attitude.
And it's about changing your triage, right? Changing your physiology, changing your focus, change your language, change your life, and being focused on where you are, and being in that language that you put to experience becomes your experience. So when you're talking to your plants and everything, the words you say become your experience. You start swearing, you start giving things that becomes your experience. If you're talking to your plants, I played music, I'm singing, I'm dancing, I sleep with them, I go upstairs, I love my plants, right? I meditate with my tent open, clear-minded. Did that yesterday, fell asleep, it was beautiful. I mean, when you be able to be around a good energy, because you're good energy, right? Understand we're all good energy. So good energy, you know what? Feel that vibe, feel that vibration. And when you're in a negative vibration, you feel negative people around you. How do you think your plants feel? Yeah. We all feel negative energy, right? We all work on that same frequency. So depending on what frequency you're at is where your plants are at. They work on a frequency that we don't know. Everything's based on frequencies. There's millions of frequencies. All of these phones are frequencies. Everything is frequency. You have a frequency. Your plant has a frequency. It works off of vibration. Understand frequencies and vibrations. And really tune into yourself, into where you're growing. Because your plants and everything around you reflects on your basic world's vibration. Vitals, right? Energy, frequency, vibrations, Nicholas. There you go. Love it.
And you can actually you can monitor plants for frequency the same as ours. Like, plants will produce between 40 and 80 kilohertz when they're happy and clean. And you can literally, with a meter, check and see how your plants are reacting to the system you have them in. That's why a lot of people play music with their plants, trying to react or to trying to mimic nature. The sounds of bird chirpings, plants have evolved with that sound forever. Birds are the number one spreader of the seed, right? Them and small mammals, they're going to come and eat the seed and spread them everywhere. The plant knows what a bird sounds like. If you could just get birds chirping in your garden, happy birds, you'll see a difference in the way your plants grow. I'm telling you.
Well, I know Lily talks about, thinking that the birds wake the plants up in the spring with their chirping. And every morning, the same thing. It's like it's wake up in that positive energy and let's get the day going. That's why, John, we meet every morning, because it's that positive energy to get our day done that really drives us forward.
The most important part is get up and get your ass out of bed.
Yeah,
they've recorded plants making audible noises when they're being cut or stressed. They make clicking sounds that can be recorded that are 100% from the plants. The plant itself can tell, like I said, through chemical and energy, a plant can tell another plant that it's under attack from an herbivore or a pest, without that other plant having to be attacked by the same herbivore or pest. And now that plant will start to create new chemicals so that it has a possibility to maybe fight off that pest or herbivore that's showing up in the area. 100%.
Well, that's why we add insect frass, right? Because we want that kind of a reaction from our plant, because that's what helps produce our trichomes.
Well, the insect frass is high in chitosan, which once it breaks down in the plant, becomes plant available. The plant uses it in a systemic fashion and starts to produce levels of it itself. It makes the cells stronger. It keeps bugs off the plant. It makes the plant generally healthier. It jumpstarts the systemic acquired resistance, the hyper resistance, and the jasmonic response in the plant. And all of these will help build new enzymes that the plant wasn't building until that actually happened.
Yeah, the chitinase really does affect our plants. You know, a lot of people don't even think about that our trichomes, what we're looking for is actually a reaction to what is happening around our plants.
And I use chitosan in my, I have a liquid one that I get from a company called Tidal Grow, because using insect frass takes time for it to be broken down by the soil. That can take a while. With cannabis, we're growing such a short-term crop. Unless your soil is highly active and been there for a while, fresh soil will have a hard time producing enough chitosan for the plant in that first grow. So what I do is use the liquid stuff from Tidal Grow. They'll actually give you a free sample if you hit them up. They'll send you a bottle of each one of the high molecular weight and the low molecular weight. One works better for a foliar. One works better for your soil. One's easier to penetrate through the epidural layer of the plant. Works great for your moms. Your moms will drop roots so fast using chitosan in your system.
Cool.
Chitosan and carbon, up your carbon through using calcium and carbon inputs. Anything you input, if it has a form of carbon attached to it, it's better than not.
Well, we're all carbon-based creatures, whether it's our plants or our animals or us. Without that carbon, we're not going to be having as healthy cells or biology in our cells than we do if we don't have that carbon. So, John, what are you reading there?
Saying it's a huge problem is your brain lying to you.
Okay. Your brain's lying to you that you have a doctor's appointment.
Also associate the size of a problem with the size of a solution. This is in your garden, what we're talking about here. They're fairly linked. Issues don't scale. Only our concerns with the situation does. Most problems can be solved by finding a person with a suitable set skill. Always look at your who and not your how. We talk about this and what we're looking at and everything is here, the vibrations, the sound, the who's, what's going on around you and stuff like that. Consider two patients. One has a broken finger and the other has a broken leg. The problems are not the same magnitude, yet the situations are the same. Call a doctor. Right? So when you have the same situations in a garden, when you look at things, there's always situations in the garden. They're the same. Every situation in the garden is the same situation. They all need to be tied to. When we look at vibrations and sounds and different ways of water, vapor, VPD, these are all pressure sounds and different things in your garden. That's a good way of looking at it. In almost every area of your life, there's a scenario that plays out. Yet when we are presented with a problem, we haven't yet dealt with the experience. We tend to forget these are instead enter an emotional state, saying sentences such as, this is a huge problem. See, you're giving negative energy in your garden. Great way to open up a book. What sends into the state of a worried instead of a state of a problem solving. So you want to put anything into a worried problem solving. The way focusing on the size of the problem neglects your ability to actualize activity and execute. If you have a huge problem, shift your focus to who has the knowledge and the experience to solve this.
Mm-hmm.
And we always look at our who, not our how.
Well, and that's why we created this show.
Solve this.
Yeah.
And that was just a great thing. He asked me what I was reading, and And I have this great little book, and it's you can be rich or you can be proud. It's by a friend of mine, Peter Schwain. He's an awesome guy. He runs the ROA mastermind groups I'm involved with, and all the stuff that I've been kind of getting involved with. That work with a higher peer group of people that push us. We push each other to say little things and to step up for ourselves and to grow forward and look at the different frequencies and work on a vibrational frequency, which your plants do. Understand vibrations and frequencies and stresses that you have in your life also reflect in your garden and everyone around you.
Yeah.
Your emotional state is your fuel of choice. It's what controls you every day. Remember that the gasoline you put in your engine is the same gasoline you put in your own emotional state. The food you eat, the people you hang around with, the plants that you grow.
Yeah.
And the social medias that you link to. Really know if I sit here and my stuff doesn't upload. So a lot of people wonder, it's this whole social media and uploads and frequencies. There's so many different frequencies out there than vibrations because you are a frequency vibration. In reality, I see the future would just be able to tap into that frequency of who we are and the people that we associate ourselves with through meditation, through voice, through sound, through smell. These are all things that your plants read. They don't talk. They work off of sound. They work off of frequencies through temperatures, right? Vibrational, right? And that comes down with wind.
Yeah.
Wind is a vibration. The sound that we hear today, the rays of the sun that come down, they're all frequencies, right? They're all, well, it's PAR, it's photosynthetic flux density. There's the amount of photons that come from that sun is actually a frequency of a light. That light still has a type of way of magnifying relief or anything that you say in your garden. Just think of that. Think of the frequencies that are coming from, or the sounds, or even the smell. I wonder if you put a harsh smell into the plant, can you change its way of how it grows? And we'll talk about that. Does smell change the effect of how cannabis grows?
That's an interesting concept, actually.
Yeah. Mr. Toad's deep where he's frozen. No,
he's deep.
He's not. Oh, he's on mute.
You gotta hit your bar.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yep.
It's just a post that I'm trying to keep connected
Dude, I'm
to.
doing the same thing. I gotta do the push-up thing. All that. It's what we do. It's what we love, and it's what you should all about. They're doing is really giving that knowledge and applying that knowledge and what you're learning, you're sharing with others, and that's how you continue to learn for yourself.
Mixed with plants.
So the answer I gave you. Remember this.
Endophytes. Endophytes will pass through to the seed, and it's part of how they're finding out that some of these viroids and viruses are passing into the plant. Some of the pathogens, they're being carried as an endophyte when the seed's being formed in the ovary.
And there is a direct correlation to the biology that's in our plants to the biology in ourselves. So the biology is what builds every cell in your plant. So it's going to be in your plant whether you like it or not, because if the biology isn't there, you don't have a plant. So you can look at it that way. It's that microbiology is what your plant is.
Well, we're proof of it in ourselves. Like the human genome is made up of like 8 different viruses that we've collected over our fucking evolution, and they ain't going away. They're gonna stick with us forever. They're part of our DNA. Same thing's happening with plants. We just aren't smart enough to pay attention to it. Like humans, the smartest monkey around, didn't start thinking anything else could feel or think until like the 90s, man. Like we are far behind and shit. Like no one as a consensus was paying attention to how everything around us is a sentient being.
Yeah.
Like everything.
And AI has turned into a sentient being.
Yeah, slowly but surely. But it's screwing up more now than it ever has. So I'm not sure what the heck's going on with that end of it. But we should be able to communicate with our plants as well as we communicate with each other. If we open our senses and our minds, our hearts, our souls, we can feel that energy from the plants. That's what John and Tony were talking about earlier, sleeping with their plants, being in that positive vibration.
Yeah. I've slept with my plants more than I've slept with any other human. Look, like I sleep with them all the time. I passed out in there every day. I used to be in there so much that just it's time for a nap. Lay down, get on the floor, go to sleep. If it's fucking healthy enough for a plant in there, I should be able to sleep quite easily in that room. So it was another way to judge humidity levels in the room without meters and shit. I'll just fall asleep in there. And I used to consult and do the same thing. Like, I need to come spend 2 days in your room. I'm going to spend overnight and find out, are the lights coming on during the dark cycle when you're asleep? Like, there's reasons you're having all these issues in your garden. We need to go through every step and not just think that my timer works. Like, you know how many times I've went to someone's house and their timer was busted and they didn't unplug that and put another one in just to check. They just kept rocking a broken ass 15 for like a month until the whole garden's fucked. Now they want to pay someone to come tell them what's wrong when all they had to do was have a backup timer and just plug it in and see if that's possibly the shit before you call the plumber, right? Like, try reach your arm down in there and pull some of that toilet paper out before you call a motherfucker that's going to charge you $200 an hour.
Yeah, exactly. Don't call the fire department till you actually have the fire.
Yeah, and that's how I learned everything. There was no one around me, especially with cannabis, but everything I know, like, no one taught me it. I somehow figured it out by being interested in it and then researching and finding the people that knew what the fuck they were doing. Not just listening to someone that said they seen it done or I heard this is that. Like, it's with growing. I didn't talk to cannabis people about how to build soil. I talked to farmers out here that have vegetable gardens and grow strawberries and fucking jalapenos and tomatoes and shit, and who have been doing it for generations. Because the pot grower fucking wasn't talking to nobody. They came up with some shit that might have worked for them where they were at, doesn't work somewhere else. Because we found that out with cannabis, the way it's so heterozygous and so easily has plasticity that it'll change like that overnight by being in a different environment. Your tomatoes grow like your tomatoes at your house and your grandma's house, right? So now you understand that, like, to stop blossom end rot, increase calcium, and make a better watering schedule. Same thing happens with cannabis, right? You start getting plants that are getting molds and mildews in the flowers all the time. Your cell structure is not strong enough. How do you make that stronger? Everyone will tell you silica if they're stoners, but calcium's the base of what's happening. Right? Without calcium, you can't build a strong cell, no matter how much silica you put on the plant. So understanding your calcium levels in that plant are going to help you have a healthier plant than just going to a forum and going, oh shit, they put in this much calcium week 3. Right? If you're not using the exact same peat moss that they're using, you got a different brand, the pH, your water's off, you got too many chlorides in there, everything can change, and you end up fucking up cannabis. So you have to utilize that knowledge from everywhere instead of just the pothead. The pothead that doesn't go and listen, he's not the greatest guy to pay attention to. But there are tons of us out here who spent so much time looking to other industries to correlate what we're seeing in cannabis because of the amount of knowledge that are in those industries. It's easier to bring that over here than to try to take what you know from cannabis over somewhere else.
Well, and John talks about that, about learning and continuing to educate yourself every single day. If you're not moving forward with your education, what are you doing? You're falling behind, and you need to keep up, especially if you want the best quality medicine that you can actually make for yourself.
Yeah. The living soil proved it. You know how long ago that, like, you were laughed at for using soil to grow cannabis? And now today, some of the best cannabis we've ever seen with the highest test scores, the most terpene contents are coming out of extremely well-built living soils, right? And those come with testing. Every round, you find out if I need to add calcium. Did the plant utilize more magnesium that I was able to give to it? Do I need to add some more of that to it? Once you lock that shit in the system, it's easy to grow cannabis and quality cannabis.
And we actually have a specialist on sap analysis coming on with Leighton Morrison this afternoon. So that's, Super Nessa, that's really into, taking the sap from the trees. I think that's something that's really going to appeal to your train of thought, brother. But John, it is 10:29, so you've got to walk out that door here right away, bro.
Yeah, I gotta go see my. Well, I gotta go see my cardiologist
Yep.
because of
We
that damn
appreciate
accident.
you.
Dealing with that shit still. I
Mhm.
feel like I'm always having a heart attack for the last ever since I got hit. So,
Okay, well,
gentlemen,
John,
bye.
we love you. Go.
Okay.
Take it easy,
I'm out.
brother. Let's see. Calcium
Okay.
carbon correctly.
Well, they were asking which is the main building block. Calcium is the main building block, is what Peter was saying.
Carbon is the number one thing that without you're not growing anything.
Yeah.
But on top of that, calcium would be the number one. It's not one of the major 3 NPKs, and I believe it should be. The amount of calcium so many plants use, nobody's ever paying attention to their fertilizer having a calcium in it at all. That's one of the last things, right? That's why for so long there was a joke around it needs more CalMag, right? And that's because the way they were given calcium in fertilizer forms was with a magnesium with it. Today we can just give calcium without boosting the magnesium so high to have issues that it's at a toxic level, right?
Mhm.
So we can use just calcium by itself in different forms, multiple different forms. All kinds of limes will have calcium in them for you. Just depends on the soil structure you're dealing with and what you start off at. Like there's guys out there like Slow Nickel. If you guys want to learn a lot about calcium, go read his post. You'll find out how important it is to make sure the calcium levels that your plant receives are at the correct level. And just putting it in the soil doesn't always do it. Sometimes you have to foliar spray that to get it to the point in the plant without overloading the soil to a point where it becomes unavailable or toxic.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing is a lot of people, and Leighton talks about it all the time, is don't be a moron. You know, you don't necessarily need more of anything. It's more of where can I use it in the best form. So a foliar, you're going right to the biology that's building that leaf, that cell in that leaf.
Right to
You're
the sinks
building,
and the source, 100%.
yeah, yeah.
100%.
And that's why foliators are so important, not just the soil drench, because then the biology's got to break it down, move it up in through the plant. Where if you're putting it in as a foliar, it's right there for the biology to grab and go, oh, hey, yeah, I needed that.
Yep. And you're right, Stone. The synthetic stuffs are always going to come with the wrong kind of nitrogen. It's not that it's just nitrogen; it's the wrong type of nitrogen. Shit, we don't need in there fucking with our plants. At least with cannabis that we're smoking, you could utilize that in something else that you're going to eat, and it wouldn't be as bad. But the fact that we're going to smoke it, and you've got that calcium, the cheapest form of nitrates in there, you're going to be pissed, right? So instead, you could go to an amino, like a soybean, to get your calcium and a nitrogen source that the plant can utilize and isn't going to burn the fuck out of your plant and add a bunch of crap to it. It's like peeing on your plant all the time. Fucking people trying to use the cheapest input, and then they're mad that they grew the worst kind of weed they ever could find. Like building soil is not hard because it lasts for so long. The first time you build it, it costs you some money, but you don't have to do it again. As long as you don't end up with root aphids, you should be fine. And you can keep root aphids out by having a highly active living soil. If you've got the right guys down in the fucking soil, the bad guys don't show up. And even if they try, they become fodder. They're just ate up.
I like what Super Nessa says here. If I didn't grow it, I won't smoke it. And that's basically most of the time how I feel, because I know what has went into my plant. I don't want to eat things that I don't know if how much chemical is there. And that's, the synthetic fertilizers that we're using. A lot of the times we don't have any real idea what harm or good they're actually doing for our plants.
Or like the source, like nitrogen today. A lot of nitrogen's coming out of Russia. A lot of the synthetic fertilizer being used that comes out of there. We don't know how the fuck they're producing it. Like, we don't know what's coming on. It's not because they're Russian people. It's because they're trying to make money off of the cheapest form of fertilizer. And that could be anybody. If you don't get to break down what you're using, then you're just you shouldn't use it. That's the way I feel. Like, and that's why the synthetics are so bad. And everybody's went. You like the hydro store 10 years ago did not look like it does today. The hydro
No.
store used to be just filled with synthetic everything. There were no organic inputs for nothing, right? Unless you went to the correct one. We used to have to go to feed stores to get most of the shit we were after, right? You'd be lucky if you got fucking seaweed over there in a bulk form at the hydro store. Like they were gonna sell it to you already broke down to a liquid, right? And those have stabilizers in them that we don't need. Like we'd rather use it when we need it instead of have it sitting there waiting for us to come to it. Because it's not fresh. It doesn't have the enzymes that we need in it when it's all bottled up. It's not the same thing. So making inputs from plants like nature does, that's how nature feeds itself.
Yeah.
So us taking leaf litter and taking broken down plant matter and putting it in a bucket with some enzymes is the exact same thing nature does. We just can speed it up because we've learned the process. Nature does it extremely slow. Like watching OK Calix on Instagram, watch him. That cat will show you how to make all the inputs you need from what's around you. And it's easy if you can do it. If you've got the physical ability to do it, it's not hard. And it'll make you, like earlier we were talking about positivity, going outside, collecting nature, putting it into a pile and turning it into free soil that will feed you. It doesn't get more positive than that. Like everything about that makes you feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
Like building soil from the ground up, from dust and ashes into something that's alive, like terra preta. That's what we should be trying to be striving to have in our system. If we could devise the same soil that the Amazonians did with the terra preta, we would have the perfect soil, be able to grow whatever the hell we wanted in that.
Well, I know that they can harvest so much terra preta, and as long as they don't go over that limit, it actually makes itself back because it makes its own lignin. And there's some areas where peat moss is being harvested on an ethical basis, like that in Canada, especially. But terra preta, when I really got into it and looked at the history of how the Amazonians were basically wiped out like the American natives were by disease, they had these huge cities, and then we have these pits now. But I think with the carbon, which is your biochar that's in there that people talk about, I think it's the same as the military using their mizzen pits today. They put in charcoal to cut the smell. That's where all the potteries come in from, is broken pottery from, people peeing in their bucket and okay, that one broke, so they just threw it in the garbage dump. I think that was literally the garbage dump from these cities, and over the thousands of years, it has become what it is now, which is, we call it terra preta.
It's possible because they weren't throwing away the shit we were throwing away. Everything they threw away was an organic source. There was no plastics. There was no metals they were throwing in there. Like exactly like Ken said, they threw the broken stuff away. But the real magic of it is the fact that those charcoal chunks that are in there, the pottery shards that are in there, the bones that are in there, they increase the surface area for biology in that soil. I believe that's what the true secret is. And that's why they can't figure it out. Is they're not putting two and two together because they're not gardeners, they're scientists. They're some of the smartest people on earth, but they don't use the soil that they're fucking analyzing. They don't go home and try to grow better tomatoes or a better cannabis plant with a soil mix and trying to understand how fungi and bacteria and enzymes are interacting with the rhizome so that our plants can produce different enzymes. Like potheads are diving into the science of terpene production far more than a dude that's looking at terra preta. So like to understand why that's happening, we know that by putting those in there, we're giving extremely more surface area for everything that we try to build in that soil. So if it was a dump, or if it was like a giant fucking outhouse, also like utilizing fecal matter in there, it breaks down just like a big old septic tank would do. And all they have to do is have a specific bacteria to throw in there with it, and it'll stay clean all the time. just like using a kashi meal, like kashi meal inoculated, thrown into that, just takes the smell away. Or using something
Yeah.
like EM1, which is easy to make.
So one of the things I want to say, mention Kit has a comment here. Has anyone used fish? Plant a whole fish about 3 pounds at the bottom of the pot, fish pots. And actually, my wife Lily, her I think it was her uncle in his potato patch. That's what they used to do. Dig the hole extra deep, throw a fish in for the nitrogen, etc., and then plant on top of that. But he wasn't doing it for every single hole. He was spreading it out. So I don't know that it would be too much in a pot. I think you would probably, or I'm not sure, but I think you would throw things out of balance.
Yeah, I would definitely not put them in a pot. Back in the 80s, we used to do that shit the year before the grow in the patches. But like putting that in your house garden, you're going to attract pests with a whole fish.
Well,
There's
even
going to be
even if
problems.
it's underneath the soil at the very bottom of the pot as it breaks
Mhm.
down, you have to consider, people, that when an animal is hit on the side of the road and it's laying in the ditch and you see it expanding and blowing off and it literally will explode. That's the biology inside of the animal. As soon as it passes on, that biology starts to eat it and break it down because that's life cycle. So you're going to get a mix of biology in that fish that is buried into the soil. Some of it isn't going to be biology that's really conducive for growing your plants. It's conducive for breaking down that fish.
Lily, did he put the fish in at the time of planting, or did he put it in prior to the garden being started that year? There's a difference. Like
Mhm.
it would take a buried fish a whole year to break down in the soil buried. If you put it in today, it's not going to be completely broke down. That's why we end up with like fossils, like the no air getting to it, just like in a
Yeah,
bog, it ends up preserving it instead of it breaking down. You're better
yeah.
off making a fish hydrocell out of that and utilizing that. Use enzymes to break the fish down and then give it to your plants because now it's bioavailable. Like you have to have serious living soil to break a fish down to make that become bioavailable to a plant.
And Lily says she doesn't honestly remember, but because we're talking going back,
I
50 years
understand.
ago.
I know
So
back in the 80s they used to do that. They would
yeah,
take fish, they would take a salmon from the
yeah,
winter run and throw it in the holes so that the next year you'd have it. And it wasn't every hole, like you're saying. They would chop up chunks of that fish, and if they were doing every hole, pieces would go in there. You'd throw
mhm,
some lime inside the hole with it, um, powdered fertilizers basically, and then fill the holes back up. So the next year when you came in there, you had spots ready for growing plants, and you didn't have to grow in that exact spot. Like it's in the soil. The plants,
yeah,
living soil will make that available to your roots through the mycelium. The
yeah. The
mycelium will
fungal
bring up
life
what
you
you
get.
need. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like we talk a little bit about horizontal gene transfer, with James White on the Soil Matters, and the more roots in the soil, the more interaction you have with the root hairs and the biology from the different plants. The more you're going to have overall for the available workforce to build your plant, because maybe a corn plant has a certain biology that our cannabis plant could actually use to help it process something or grow a particular cell. But if you
Yeah.
never mingle the
Symbiotic
two,
relationships. Yeah. Yeah.
that's why I'm in the R&D grow. I've got a whole bunch of different things growing, like fenugreek, mung bean, daikon radish. I'm going to be stripping soil out of those pots, kind of like Leighton's method of soft collision, to strip the biology off and then give that biology in a liquid form into my plants and my soil.
Mhm.
I'm debating on a foliar, doing it foliarly or not, or just doing it in the soil. But just the mix of biology, the greater amount of biology. And you think of quorum sensing, and I think the biochar at the right level is a great place for quorum sensing, because 1 square inch is the size of a football field at the molecular level. So that's like a university, campus that you're giving to the biology for it to learn and grow and create new things that aren't in the soil structure that it needs to create.
And it's highly beneficial to put that biochar in there. Every time there's a forest fire, life comes out of it. Like you utilizing it's carbon, it's free carbon.
Yeah.
Like 100%. It's
just don't overdo it.
Like a redwood tree, right? A redwood tree, all it is a carbon pump. It's trying to store carbon out of the air. And it's you doing this through photosynthesis and respiration. And it ends up storing it in its cells. And then once that burns down, it's returned back to the earth. So we can take that same method that the earth has been using for millennia and taking millennia to do, and do that in a season by burning and making biochar, adding it back to our soil at a small percentage. You don't put a ton, like even if a whole forest burns down, you still haven't put a high percentage of biochar in that system. There's so much soil blood. Yeah. So like putting 2% in your soil mix will increase that soil's potential for being a living soil way higher than just using a basic bag of like peat and mixing in other things to it. Like you don't have the amount of surface area that Ken said for that biology to take hold and live.
Yeah. And you need that carbon because every little bit of biology that's in the soil in every cell has to have carbon in it, or else you don't have the cells. So we need that little bit of carbon. But like Tony said, 2%, I don't think you should really be going much over that 2%. And I think micronized would be even better instead of having the larger chunks to break it down that much more and spread it out throughout so that there's more potential.
Yeah, because they don't need a big chunk to live in. Bacteria are so fucking small, they can live on a grain of that stuff. Yeah. That's why the micronized works great. Or if you really don't want to do any work and you have fish tanks, take the fish filters out of there and cut them open and use the fucking active charcoal that's in there after they've been in the fish tank.
Well, and Leighton talks about that. Drop it in a bucket of water for 5 to 7 days. When it starts smelling sweet, then use it, because then the biology has proliferated. The good biology has proliferated where you can use it.
Or just add some EM1 to it in that bucket and help it help the biology along. It'll make that smell happen way sooner. They take hold in that thing. But if you're already using an old one, like even if it stinks, it's going to go away. The soil's going to turn into something very, very nice. It'll turn into a sweet smelling soil that smells like sweet and mushroomy, like moss and like it's hard to explain. The forest floor to me smells like truffles, almost like fresh truffles and like old man beard moss. Like that's the smell, and I get that from good cannabis. To me, good cannabis has that in the background. All the good cannabis for me in my history have that kind of funky, earthy smell that just attracts me to it. It's like laying on the ground and breathing deeply. The smell that you get after fresh rain or something.
Yeah.
That's what I like.
Peter Cactus has an interesting question. What is all the controversy about composting citrus? Before I let you go off, Tony, there is actually a video that Lily and I have both watched on I can't remember where it was in the world, but they got all the citrus rinds from a juice plant, and they just in huge mounds out on this piece of property. It ended up being stopped because there was other disputes, but when they went back, all those citrus rinds, they couldn't find them. They realized that everything had grown on top of them and was the healthiest they had ever seen. I think it's more time management. Like citrus has certain things in it that needs to break down longer than just putting it in a cannabis plant. You need to compost it first. Tony, what's your thoughts on citrus?
You can use them, no problem. I just wouldn't load my compost pile with them. but they
Yeah.
can be added to it.
And it's mostly don't be a moron. A little bit goes a long ways. Too much throws things out of balance. So we're supposed to be talking about a positive attitude in the grow, and we did a lot of that earlier. But let's jump back to it because that's part of what we want to focus on when we get up in the morning is having that positive attitude before we go into the grow. You know, we want to look at our SOPs and put that into your SOPs, guy. You know, like think about it before you go in, you know, change your mindset, make sure you're in the right mental state before you go in, or don't bother going in, wait a half hour, get yourself, do some breathing and calm down and make sure that you are at a level of vibration that's good for your plants, and they will give it back to you. Like we've got on December 4th a gentleman coming on who's talking about directed energy through prisms, a lot like organite, pyramid energy, stuff like that. We can actually focus this energy in different methodologies in our grows, to help promote that positive energy. And like what they found is a heart cell that's unhealthy. If you project the frequency and vibration of a healthy heart cell, that unhealthy cell will actually morph into a healthy cell, because it's like when the ladies are living in a building together, their periods synchronize. It's that synchronizing of the energies, and that's what we can do with pyramids and this different energy. What have you heard of that kind of thing, Tony?
Yeah. I, it's just like we were talking about earlier. The more positive you can get yourself going to begin with, the more easier it becomes. You're going to be, you won't have to go through setting yourself up to be positive before you go in there. Just the idea that your routine is positiveness while you go in there, it works.
Yeah, and I like Super Nessa says here, I give thanks every time I wake up before my feet touch the floor. And that's a big thing is, be positive. Even as soon as you wake up, I'm going to have an awesome, amazing day. I'm a fantastic person. Say this type of thing to yourself even before you get out of bed. Start your day in the right mental attitude. And my plants are 5 weeks and 5 feet tall. Good for you,
Nice.
Super.
What size pots are you using, Super Nessa? Are
And
you in a
he's
bed?
no, he does deep water culture.
Oh, deep water. Nice.
Yeah, and he feeds it like we got sap analysis being talked about this afternoon with Jenny on the Soil Matters in Layton. Super Nessa draws sap from the trees. That's what he uses for food in his deep water cultures.
Right on.
I keep trying to get him on to come on and explain this. He says 5-gallon DWC. And yes, Stone, today is a great day to be alive.
Deep water culture can produce some pretty big plants if you got your water on point, for sure.
Yeah. Well, and Super Nessa is lucky where he is some very rare land not touched, where it hasn't had the chemicals pumped into it, etc. So he's very fortunate in that. But I'm sure, like, if you're running a DWC, you're checking your water, you're checking your parts per million, all of these other things where, me living soil, I don't have to worry about that, very much, because the soil is going to buffer, if my pH isn't in balance. But then I also understand that, at a specific root here, my pH might be a 9 or a 10, but only in that one specific area, because that's the environment that the biology needs to, work on the sand, silt, and clay to pull a particular, nutrient and compound out. Without that, I can't get that compound. So pH in that, when you look at it that way, isn't the problem. that people think it is when you're using a soil system, because it does buffer it.
Yeah, it's got a caution exchange factor to it. It's going to buffer the whole system.
And
that comes down to having carbon in the system.
Yeah,
really. Like that's why water doesn't have the ability to buffer. There's no carbon in water.
Yeah.
There's also no carbon in silica. That's why I tell everybody when they want to add silica to try to strengthen their cell walls, if you don't add calcium and carbon along with that, the silica is not doing too much for you.
Yeah, the combination, it's like calcium and magnesium in the human body. You know, if you're taking the calcium, it's not absorbing through your cells properly. You need the magnesium to be able to bind to it, to bring it into your cells. You know, and have we really looked at stuff like that for our plants? I think it's the science isn't there yet, or if it is, I'm not aware of it yet.
It's coming. It's probably not there with cannabis, but it's there with some other plants if you dive deep enough.
Yeah. And Super Nessa is mentioning he's got temperature strips on every bucket because he is in Canada, so he has to maintain a certain temperature in his water. I used to do that with my aquaponics system because I was using fish. I had to keep that water temperature where it would, my fish were able to survive, and also my plant roots weren't getting cold in this cold water, right?
You're rocking 7.2 in water.
Okay, the best pH is found. I've found is 7.2. The water absorbs everything. Okay. We'd love to see some of your data, Super. You know, when your elders allow it, we'd love to have you on talking about all this stuff with Leighton and and that. So when you're available, brother, reach out. We're all waiting because this is something that most people have never even heard of using plant sap to actually feed our plants. But when you consider, say, that redwood tree, Tony, that you were talking about, how deep those roots go, it's drawing all those nutrients up from such a deep level into its system that sap is going to be amazing. That's the food, that's the blood of the tree. Hey, Rory.
Yep. What's up, Roy? Hope you got home safe, man. Get your car taken care of, brother.
Well, Tony, we're approaching the hour. Is there anything you would like to talk about specifically?
Not really, man. The only thing I got going on is you see my tent back here. I'm working on a reversal project that'll be going here pretty soon. The plants are already being treated, are in another area. I'm waiting for them to begin to show male staminate flowers, and then they will be introduced into the tent or one of them will. Whichever one shows the most responsiveness to the reversal, so I get the higher amount of pollen. So I've got the LA Pure Kush. It's a cut that I got from Kevin Jodry. First time he gave it to me was like 2016. It's like a 20-year-old plant. That it's a Bubba-esque type plant. And the other one I have in there would be the Ghost of One Hitter Quitter. So it's a Ghost OG back crossed to my One Hitter Quitter. And that's the weed that I've been smoking so much of lately. Man, that shit is good for me, man. I love that weed. Just a straight up OG old school. If that one responds better, then I'll be using that in there. One of those two is going in, and the other one's going into another space where I'll collect the pollen and save it. So I have it for another breeding project after this one.
So I have a silly question, and I do know the answer, but when you collect pollen from one plant, do you ever change your clothes between? Do you shower
100%.
between? What's your SOP for collecting pollen before you go back?
I used to because I have a pool here, so anytime I touched pollen, I'd strip down and jump in the pool and go change clothes. If I came from someone else's house, I had clean clothes in a bag in my vehicle. And I would take the dirty ones, put them in a bag, tie them up, leave them in the car for like 3 days, especially in the summertime, so the heat would neutralize pollen, and then put them straight in the washer. And I'll tell you guys this: be careful anywhere you go where somebody who grows weed might go. like a hydro stores or something like that, as your friend's house. They're going to have pollen flying at one point that you don't know about and they won't tell you about. And you're going to end up with seeds and shit from this. I used to be a consultant, and multiple times I'd been at a hydro store that had multiple males in the back growing, so that everything in the place had a dust of fucking pollen in it. And people going in there buying soil and fucking just being in the place. And you could go straight back to your house and have active pollen on you. So just be careful. But yeah, it's pretty easy to control pollen. Changing your clothes and at least having a wet towel to wipe yourself completely down with at a bare minimum. Like, well, what I do now is I've got 2 wheelchairs. So I take one wheelchair and put clothes on and go out and do what I got to do. And then I come out, and the wheelchair I do it in is one I can spray down. So as soon as I'm there, I'll take my clothes off and spray my whole self down in the wheelchair, dry off with a towel, and then get into the other wheelchair clean. That way, when I come back into my house, I'm not wearing anything that has active pollen on it. It's been neutralized from moisture.
Cool. Well, guys, I think we're at our hour, so we're going to cut it off here. As I've been mentioning, we have a wonderful young lady on this afternoon with Leighton Morrison talking about sap analysis. Then, of course, on Wednesday is myself and Andy Lopez. It's Thanksgiving in the States on Thursday, so I think Luna's taking the day off. Tuesday, I'm going to be doing another R&D grow. So you guys are going to want to check that out. The plants are looking absolutely fabulous. And like I mentioned, I have a bunch of other stuff growing in there as well. So that'll be coming out tomorrow, probably in the afternoon. So you guys are going to want to watch for that. Other than that, Tony, do you have any new seed drops on Daga that you want to talk about?
Nothing new that have dropped yet. I got to talk to Peter and see if I need to send anything in. I haven't sent nothing in for a while. But, I do have a whole bunch of my Ghost of Boneyard crosses, which is a Ghost of Bone. It's a Ghost OG back cross 1. I've got Ghost OG back cross 2, and then I've crossed that to a bunch of elites that I had, and from there I've popped some of the seeds and selected different moms that now I'm back crossing with, like the Ghost of Star Dog is being back crossed to the Ghost of Boneyard, so it's just increasing the OG of the plant, the terpene profile and the structure.
Cool. And that's fantastic, guys. So Tony's going to have more seeds coming out, especially after this next back cross. So anyway, guys, we'll see you next week. Love you all. And probably see a lot of you guys on this afternoon on the Soil Matters. And with that, guys. Oh, go ahead, Tony.
I said, Ryan, appreciate everybody for being here. Thank you.
All right. Peace out, everybody.